Little lapel mic for you.
Okay.
Did we get that? Huh? Yeah, it's on. It's on.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I haven't just had it shut off right there.
Shut off from
Okay. Sound check. Is it working?
here. Sound check, and then we'll get.
Testing, testing. Sound check. 1 2 1 2. Okay.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna have 2 drawings, or is he just giving it away? Or are we gonna have 2 drawings? Okay. And signed in. And
Guess we don't need that one. Not even plugged in.
yeah, no, it's usually. As many of you know, I'm Dr. John Savishlock. You think I'd have an easy time saying that name with a last name like Aguirre, but I don't. But I don't know if you know Dr. John from the University of Arkansas Extension. He's basically Arkansas's bee daddy. And Gladys and I
Haven't heard that one before.
Gladys and I were at the Arkansas Beekeepers Association meeting and heard Dr. John do a presentation, and he graciously agreed to give us pretty much that similar presentation here. All right, so without further ado, Dr. John.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening. Always a pleasure to be back. Nobody's invited me to speak to you guys in a couple years now, so my feelings are almost hurt. I have moved up here from Little Rock. I'm in Fayetteville now, so maybe the last time you saw me, I was down there, but I've been up here for about 1.5 years now, so I'm quite close, and if anybody ever has a question, I try to always be available. All my contact information is here on our website, of course. I did bring a few of these publications, Beekeeping in Arkansas. If you're new to beekeeping or you want a refresher course, you're welcome to pick up one of those. But this is, as Brent said, it's just kind of an overview of things that have happened in the last year in the beekeeping world. It's something I like to do at the state meeting, just to kind of pick up and go over some things that we've seen in the news. So here's this year's extension update. So the big news probably earlier this year, as you guys probably heard, there was some pretty big winter losses around the country last winter, and we're getting ready to go into winter again, and it remains to be seen what's going to happen. But traditionally, 10% was considered acceptable losses. So that was what beekeepers, kind of expected. It was considered normal, considered something you could recover from. And then around the late 1980s, the varroa mite came into the United States, and all our losses went up to, on average, 22% every winter. So that was a pretty big hit for the beekeeping industry, but people managed, they recovered, we figured out. We're still trying to figure out what to do about varroa mites, but this kind of became the new normal. Until a few years ago, in 2006, 2007, suddenly those losses went up again. And this was what we called colony collapse disorder. And so from then on, things have kind of gone up and down, but we've been at around a 30% loss. And then just when we thought maybe we were getting a handle on the new normal, this last winter, the average losses were 62%. So that, of course, is highly variable across the country, different places, different beekeepers. It was really different, but really takes into account kind of the commercial beekeepers. 93% of all honeybee colonies in the country are run by a small number of commercial beekeepers. The majority of beekeepers are hobbyists with just a few backyard hives. We have a few in the middle who are sideliners. That's kind of anywhere from 50 to 500. But even though the hobbyists, they're still losing half of their bees. It's not quite as bad, but because the commercial guys, they own so many of the hives that it keeps the average up there pretty high. So this is from last June through February, according to the records of numbers of colonies that we had. And this is 1.1 out of 1.8 million hives in the country. So it takes roughly 1 million close to 2 million hives just to pollinate almonds. So around 1.8 million hives are needed just to pollinate one crop. Nearly half of the beehives in the country go out to California every February just to pollinate almonds. It's the first big crop in bloom, and so they're 100% dependent on honeybees. And so we have to have all these bees trucked out to California just to do this one job. So these guys came out of winter and they have pollination contracts where they said, I'll bring 10,000 honeybee colonies to California, and they come out of winter and they've only got 5,000. So they start to panic, they start to split colonies. Of course, the smaller the colonies, the less they get paid. So it was a big panic moment for them, and that's when all of this news started coming out. And different parts of the country were still in winter time, so we didn't even know the extent of it when they first started to discover all of these. You had a question, sir?
What are the states in white?
Okay, so these states that are in white, they did not report any data. So like Arkansas, none of the commercial beekeepers, we only have a few in Arkansas, none of them responded to this survey. But of the ones that did, that's where the data fell out. So the big question was, what's going on? And then everybody, of course, has different ideas about it. So there's a kind of a famous story from ancient India where they took a bunch of blind people to see an elephant. And they would touch some single part of the elephant, and they would, they'd touch its leg, and they'd say, oh, an elephant is like a tree. Or they would touch it on the trunk, and they'd say, oh, it's like a snake. And so nobody got really the full picture. It's kind of a silly story. If you'd taken 5 more minutes to walk around the elephant, you would have discovered more. But it's kind of the same way in science and a lot of other areas. Everybody's got a specialty. And when you see a problem, you think, oh, this is what it's going to be, because this is what I know about. So obviously, I'm an expert on this. So everybody who studies honeybees said, oh, this is it, this is it, this is it. And so we got a lot of guesswork early on. And like most things in biology, it's a mixture of a lot of stuff. So what's going on with honeybees is a combination of all of these factors, except maybe cell phone radiation. Although that was a big thing that they blamed colony collapse on at first. And if you go back and look at the study that was done, it was a really lousy study where they put like an old Nokia cell phone, like one of those big chunky ones, into a hive for 2 weeks. And then they said, oh, well, they're not making any honey. Obviously, it's the radiation. It was a really lousy study, but it got picked up on, by the AP wire service and printed everywhere. But, that's how it goes. So back to the situation this last winter, when all of the quick studies, the samples they took came in, they determined that it was viruses. A number of viruses are killing these bees, in addition to the mites, which are the vectors of the virus. So the mites do physical damage to the bee, they corrupt their immune systems, and they spread pathogens all at the same time. And one of the main reasons why the mites were so out of control was that the product that a lot of the commercial beekeepers use is starting to fail. We've known that this was coming for a long time. If y'all have been keeping bees a long time, maybe you remember Apistan. Anybody ever use that? How long did we have that around? A few years before they started to build up resistance. So then they introduced the Czech mite, Coumaphos. That lasted about a year before they started to see resistance to it. So the commercial guys have been using Apivar or Amitraz as the chemical, and the way it works, it breaks down very quickly in the hive, so it doesn't stay in there long term as the original molecule. So the mites don't build up resistance to it before it kind of dissipates. It breaks down into other things, though, that still have some effect. And so this is why it's been able to last a lot longer. But people have overused it. They relied on one single chemistry to control mites in these 2 million bee colonies for so long that finally mites have figured out biological ways around it. And so if you talk to the commercial beekeepers, they don't like this. They don't like being told they don't know how to manage their bees, but this is what the evidence shows. It's all part of the same thing. Now, there's other factors like nosema, and there's other diseases and things like that. Poor nutrition all plays into this, but the mites and the viruses are still, looks like, the number one cause. And so the people who make Amitraz or Apivar, those strips, they came out a couple of years ago. Knowing that this was happening, they introduced another product called Amiflex, which looks like a tube of caulking. It comes in a thing, looks like a caulking gun, and you squirt out a little line on like a popsicle stick, and you set it in the hive. And it's the same material, but it's supposed to be a flash treatment. So it's a whole lot of it at once that kind of dissipates into the hive. So you really shock the system. Since the mites are becoming resistant to it, just use more of it. That was their response to that. And so this last year, they introduced Apivar 2. Same product, different formulation, stronger, more of it. It's a flash. So now this product is replacing the old one. You use one frame or one strip for every 5 frames of brood in the hive, and you leave it anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. So longer than the original one, which was 2 brood cycles or 42 days. And there's no temperature restriction on this. So I'm not a big fan of this particular product because I don't like putting a lot of chemicals in my hive, but we live in Arkansas. And a lot of the other products we have are restricted by temperature, or you can't use them during the honey flow and things like that. So this is one that you could use summer or winter, as long as you didn't have any hives with supers on them. But there's no withholding period, so the second you pull that strip out, you can plop a honey super on top. And the reason is because it breaks down, it's not water soluble, it doesn't leach into the honey, and so it doesn't leave a residue or any appreciable residue. You can still detect the other things that the breakdown products, the other molecules it breaks down into, but not at tremendously high levels. So that was one new product that was introduced. If you want to use oxalic acid, that's another one that doesn't have a temperature restriction on it, and they have updated the label for this, the EPA has. So this just came out in June. If you are vaporizing your oxalic acid, they have changed it. It used to be 1 gram per deep brood box, and the new rate is 4 grams per deep brood box, which is more in line with what they've done in Canada and Europe for a long time. 1 gram never seemed like it was enough. There was a fella in Florida who did a lot of work on this and really lobbied to raise that. So if you're using a vaporizer now, you can use 4 grams, which a lot of people were doing anyway, because 1 wasn't really doing it, but now you can do that legally. So Apibioxol is just sold kind of in bulk. You scoop it out. And this other one called EasyOx, they come in little pellets, 1 gram each, so you don't have to measure it. You just put it out there. There is another new product that was also just approved by the EPA, and it has a very poetic name, MBG2X5G strips, or Might B Gone. And I don't like that picture. What is that? Looks like a sphesid wasp. If you're a beekeeper, and you're putting out a beekeeping product, at least put a honeybee on your label. This is like some bad, sloppy AI art that they didn't really pay attention to, so I don't care for that. But what this stuff is, it's called glutamic acid. It's been known to be a miticide for a while. It's food grade, it's a biopesticide, and it was approved in March for use in beehives. But the product itself is not available yet. The people who have patented this, it looks like they're crowdfunding it. You can look at their website, mightbegone.com. They're asking for donations to scale up producing this stuff. So last I checked, it wasn't for sale yet, but this is another potential product, another tool in our arsenal. Everything that we have, we can rotate different types of chemistry so that we can avoid those same issues with mite resistance. So with this one, again, it comes on cardboard strips, not so ooey gooey like Hop Guard, which is on a cardboard strip. Of course, bees don't like paper. You put paper into beehives, they tear it all up in little pieces. So if it's on a plastic strip, you're supposed to go in and take it back out. But if it's on a cardboard strip, a lot of times they'll chew it up and get rid of it on their own. So one strip for every 4 frames of brood is what they say, and you leave it for 14 to 42 days. So that was the information that is available right now. Do not confuse this potentially new product with something that is on the market. This is for scabies mites and stuff like that. This is a pesticide. Do not spray this stuff in your beehive. So that's something out there with a similar name. The other new formulation for oxalic acid was approved in 2023, kind of late. And so beekeepers started using Viroxan in 2024. And a lot of people thought that it was doing a good job. You use 1 strip for every 2.5 frames of brood, and so up to 4 strips per box. But what a lot of people began reporting last summer was, the official term was wonky combs. So where the strips have been laid up against the honeycomb, it's kind of hard to see in that bottom picture there, but the bees chew the wax up and get rid of it. They don't like that stuff to touch the wax. So we're not really sure why yet. We're not sure how well they'll build it back again next season. We're looking at each other like, oh, what's that? Did y'all use some of this? Did you see any of this?
No, I did not.
Okay. Oh. Okay. I am using some this fall, so I'm going to see what it's going to do in my hives. But a lot of people across the country, especially in warmer areas, have reported that the bees do not like it when it touches the wax, and they kind of dig it out of there.
I laid them on top of the frames.
I was about to mention that. So that's what a lot of people have done to avoid this, is laying it across the frames.
I did it because it made more sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you stick it between the frames, I've had trouble like with the Apivar strips,
Mm-hmm.
back out.
Yeah.
Because the bees actually build around and stick.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they climbing around on the strip
Mm-hmm.
when it's down between the frames and it's being covered up?
Yeah. There should be enough room to put a paper strip in there, because there's enough room in the bee space for 2 bees to work back to back. So they should be able to get underneath it, ideally. But of course, we know combs are never perfectly straight after about a year of use. So the next thing in the news, very recent, I was on my way to the meeting in Mountain View when I got this update, so I had to go in and change my presentation. This was approved on September 25th. So it's a new pesticide that it's going by several different names. The product the material is called Vatiscana, but it goes under the name of Noroa. So this is a really new, pretty revolutionary treatment for honeybees. It's based on well-documented science called RNAi. So a double-stranded RNA molecule, you feed it to your bees. They're little short strains of RNA very discrete pieces that are very specifically built. And you feed it to bees in a pouch of syrup. So it comes pre-measured like this. You just put some holes in that, lay it right on top of the brood, and you let them feed on it. Now, when they feed on this, then it ends up in the brood food. The worker bees digest it. These molecules end up in the brood food. And when they're getting ready to cap off the cells, the mites hide down in the bottom in that food, and then they parasitize the bee pupae. And so the pupae have been feeding on this, and there's some in the bottom of the cells. So the female mites, the foundress mite who goes in there to reproduce as soon as the cell is capped, she's exposed to this stuff. And what it does is it knocks out a very specific gene that is only found in female varroa mites, and it is necessary for egg production. So when a female mite is exposed to this double-stranded RNA, she can't lay eggs. It doesn't hurt honeybees. It's not found. That gene isn't found anywhere else in any other known organism. It specifically targets Varroa destructor, and it's supposed to last for 18 weeks. That's what they say. So right now, it's just been approved. There's no peer-reviewed data done outside of the company that's making this. I've been trying to get hold of some data from them for the last 2 years, but they're being real cagey about it. They just send me the same sales brochure again and again. But they say they've tested it in New Zealand and it works great, and it kills 99% of the mites. Of course, the salesman will tell you anything that you want to hear. But anyway, this is brand new. I've got great hopes for it. It's not for sale yet. I checked today, and the only place it's listed is on the Mann Lake website, and it says currently out of stock, but you can pre-order it. I think November 24th is when they think that they might have it in, but it's kind of pricey compared to other Varroa treatments, especially like oxalic acid. $22 a hive gets you 2 of these pouches that's supposed to be 1 treatment. So not something that's going to be adopted by commercial beekeepers who have 30, 40,000 beehives to treat. But, if you've got a couple of backyard hives and you want to take care of it, this is potentially a really good product. If they can bring that price point down, though, I think it might catch on.
From what I read, it was just recently approved for use in Arkansas as well.
Yes, Arkansas is on the list. Not every state you can get it.
Because originally, I think as we first saw your presentation, it hadn't been approved yet in Arkansas back in September.
Yeah.
I think it just happened in October.
I think so, yeah. I've been in touch with the people from this company for a while, and I keep pestering them, keep poking them. When's it going to happen? They've had all kinds of excuses. They were blaming the EPA. The guy who was supposed to sign all the papers, he took a government buyout and retired, and then they had to start the process over. So it's been one thing after another, but finally, here it is.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm on the wait list for Arkin to get it, but I'm on the wait list.
I'm going to try it because I feel like I should, just to test it out, see if it lives up to expectations. That's part of my job, so that's right.
We look up to you.
Okay. My wife says I'm the Arkansas bee czar, but also in the news with the feds is a proposed modification to the Endangered Species Act. And what they are proposing is to change the definition, or actually remove the definition of harm that has been in the Endangered Species Act since the 1960s, I think, when they first wrote that. So traditionally, harm has included any significant modification or degradation to habitat which can kill or injure wildlife. And they want to remove that. Basically, that would allow any logging, mining, other development that does anything to the environment would just be fine, as long as they don't actually kill an individual animal or plant or insect that is covered under the Endangered Species Act. Why should you care? Because habitat is key for what we do as beekeepers. We need habitat, not just for honeybees, but for butterflies and birds and all kinds of wildlife out there. But we key in on, of course, the honeybees, but what's good for honeybees is good for a whole lot of other things. And so this change is potentially going to really weaken our ability to protect or conserve any of that habitat. Public comments on this closed in May, and there hasn't been any decision on that yet. Like everything else that's happening lately with the government, it's likely to face legal challenges no matter what they decide. So we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, a lot of other federal programs have had a lot of ups and downs and a lot of funding cuts. So it has affected the USDA in a lot of ways. Funding for the Extension Service, where I work, comes down partially through the Farm Bill, which is through the USDA. So we're safe right now, but we don't know what is going to happen in the next cycle. So I could be out the door without any notice. But the USDA does a lot of stuff. The ARS is the arm that does research on honeybees and bee diseases and nutrition, and there's a whole lot of stuff that they do. APHIS is they're the animal plant protection. Basically, they're looking out for endangered species coming in from other parts of the world. They are the front line looking for the next murder hornet and other things. So if their budget gets slashed, there's fewer people doing that job. So that could potentially have impacts on what we're doing. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. ELAP and EQIP are also two programs that a lot of beekeepers, especially commercial beekeepers, have relied on. ELAP is Emergency Livestock Protection. It's now Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish Program, but they're not going to change the program name, even though they keep adding more animals in there. But basically, it helps to cover catastrophic losses for beekeepers, cover emergency feeding, and things like that. But only if your losses are above normal mortality. Well, what's normal mortality in beekeeping? It goes up and down, and it varies with whoever's in charge of looking over those programs. So just this last year, they codified that into the existing law that 15% is the normal mortality threshold for honeybee losses. And as we saw on our first slide, what's normal? Well, it was 10%, then it was 22%, then it was 30%, and now, who knows? So it looks like every year we could be above normal. But if your losses exceed 15%, you might qualify for aid. Doesn't mean they'll pay for all of your bees, but it's a program to help you start to get back on your feet. I have helped a couple of people with this program over the years, writing letters of support for them. And the key thing you have to have is a paper trail. So you've got to have records. The easiest way is to have a plant board inspection. If you guys are big enough to have an operation that would qualify and you'd even be interested in something like this, have your bee inspector come out. That way you have an official record of how many colonies you had on what date and what kind of condition they were in. We had somebody trying to claim that they went from 5,000 colonies down to 2,000 colonies, but they never got an inspection. So it was just their word, and the government said, I don't think so. And so they weren't able to get that. The other program I mentioned, EQIP, that's the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And this provides a lot of good stuff, but technical and financial assistance for landowners. This is through the NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, part of the USDA. So if you are a landowner, you can say, I'm going to take part of my land and put it into a conservation trust. I agree not to farm it. I won't log it. I won't mine it. It stays basically as is, and the government pays you a little bit in compensation for you not logging that entire forest that you own or something like that. So this improves land quality, air quality, water quality, soil quality, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of programs to create and enhance wildlife pollinator habitat. So these are programs that are also potentially on the chopping block. But if you're a landowner, we have a lot of programs in Arkansas, both federal and state, that go to support these kind of efforts. So anybody who's interested, I can help to point you into the direction for some of those. Also in the news this year was the Bee Lab in Beltsville, Maryland. It was situated close to the University of Maryland, which has a huge bee lab. They cooperated quite a bit, but this is the diagnostic lab that all of your samples would go to if your bee inspector took samples from your colony, or you could send them in yourself. They will diagnose and confirm that you've got foul brood or different viruses and bacterial diseases, things like that. This was free, and a lot of people relied on it, especially in poorer states that didn't have a lot of resources to do that. But they could analyze samples and give you back reports at no charge. The entire facility has been targeted for closure. They're going to lock the gates and send those people off to work in maybe some other places, or just cancel their jobs altogether. So they took public comment on this. I know it was all over Facebook and other places. Please sign this petition to keep the bee lab. Some of y'all may have seen that and written letters, but that closed in August, and of course there's been no decision on that yet. So if that happens, it's going to be a real loss of expertise for our industry at a time when we are experiencing, significant losses in the honeybees. So that's pretty poor timing. Another thing that came up this last year, they call it the Honey Integrity Act. It was introduced by Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, is a senator there. And this is actually something that the National Honey Board and some of the big beekeeping lobbying groups have been pushing for years and years to combat adulterated honey and honey from overseas coming in that was mislabeled. So it will establish clear standards for honey quality and authenticity, strengthen the enforcement of existing laws related to food safety and labeling, and protect consumers from fraudulent honey products. So that all sounds good. That's what people have been asking for. That link there, you could read the whole thing if you wanted to, but it would create a honey integrity program that would look into adulterated honey, which is all right. And it would also require commercial honey packers to test all of their imported honey using DNA testing and other available resources in science to certify that it's not been adulterated. Well, DNA testing isn't going to tell you if it's been adulterated with other sugars. You've got to do a lot of other scientific tests for that. But and I won't name names, but there's one very large Asian country that is responsible for dumping a lot of honey onto our market, and they're getting really crafty about hiding all the different sugars that they're feeding to bees and turning into honey. So if it's cheap honey's not good, good honey's not cheap. Just remember that. If your customers are asking you why you can go to Walmart and buy a pound of honey for $3 and yours cost $8 or $9, that's what you tell them. So if you don't know your beekeeper, how do you know what you got in that jar? So this program would maintain and share a database on identified honey adulteration and with all of the relevant enforcement agencies, and it would tell the FDA that they would have to investigate, test, and destroy any honey found to be adulterated. So basically a whole lot of work is put on existing agencies with no funding, just a mandate to go out and do all of this stuff. But basically, there's very little chance this law is going to pass. Obviously, right now, it is one of the last things on the federal agenda, but it's out there. We'll see what happens with it. So, anybody know what this guy is? Pretty, isn't it? Beautiful. Any guesses? That is called a spotted lanternfly. It's an invasive species from East Asia. It's been here since about 2014, and it's been spreading on its own. It was originally discovered just northeast or northwest of Philadelphia. It probably came in on horticultural plants that were imported probably as an egg mass, and it hatched out, and it feeds on more than 100 known species of plants. Its favorite plant is called tree of heaven. Y'all know what that is? It's really considered a trash tree here. It's an invasive tree. I know we have them down in Fayetteville. They grow really fast, really tall, and they stink. But they have kind of pretty looking flowers from a distance. But they were imported as an ornamental because they grow really fast, and people thought, oh, these are really nice. And then they grow out of control. Well, this insect that is also invasive loves tree of heaven and can actually kill it, which sounds good on the surface, except when all the tree of heaven is gone, it loves grapes. It loves stone fruits. So peaches, plums, cherries, apricots. It loves apples and pears. It'll also feed on a lot of hardwoods. Maple, walnut, willow, oak, poplar, birch are known hosts. So there's 100 known plants that it likes. If it ever got into Napa Valley, bye-bye grapes. So it loves grapevines, and it can kill them. So this is where it's been spreading for the last 10 or 11 years. It's unlike a lot of pests, it likes cool weather, so which is great for people in Florida because it's not predicted to spread too far down there. It doesn't like the heat. This is based on climate data, where it exists in Asia and where it could potentially be here in the U.S. And of course, Arkansas, we are right here in the medium to low area, but definitely something that could get here. Now everybody said, ooh, what a pretty bug when you first saw it. You know what an aphid is? So they're sap feeders, right? Only it's an aphid this big. And when they're around, they cover the trees like this because they reproduce so fast. Most things won't eat them. It'll suck the plants dry, especially in an Arkansas summer. Nothing likes to eat them, especially when they've been on tree of heaven. They actually sequester toxic compounds or distasteful compounds from the tree of heaven, and it makes them unpalatable to birds. When they start feeding on other trees, birds have started thinking, well, these are okay to eat, but not enough to actually kill them. And like aphids, they drink a lot of sap, they filter out the tiny bit of protein, and then all the sugar goes out the other end. So it's called honeydew, and it's bug poop, literally, and it drips down all over everything. So that's what that shiny stuff is there on those leaves. You park your car underneath it, it's just raining sugar syrup down on it. So other trees have aphids. If you have a sycamore tree, you get sycamore aphids. They do the same thing. There's other specialty aphids that do the same, but these guys are really bad for that. Well, guess what? Honeybees love them because they can eat that honeydew. And actually in Maryland, about 2 years ago, I was up there and the beekeeper said, this is the first year we haven't had to feed our bees in the fall because there's so many of these bugs. They get killed off in the winter, they overwinter as eggs, and then a new crop comes out. But in the fall, they're so numerous that they're feeding the bees for you. Still, I don't think it would be worth having them here, but I'm just trying to find the silver lining. So there are people actually producing honeydew honey, which is very popular in a lot of places. In Germany, the Black Forest region of Germany, people love honeydew honey because they're in a forest, there's a lot of aphids there, there's not a lot of flowers, so the bees collect a lot of nectar from the honeydew. I tasted some, it's not bad. You just try not to think about where it came from, right? Okay. Well, an interesting thing that was discovered by the people at Penn State is that this honeydew honey has some particular qualities that make it medical grade. It's considered to have the same or better antioxidant compounds as Manuka honey. So you're familiar with Manuka honey. It comes from New Zealand and Australia, where the bees are feeding on a particular bush, the Manuka plant, and the honey from that has extra antioxidants in it. And you can find Manuka honey for sale for like twice as much as any regular honey. You can find it at health food stores. It's got all kinds of crazy names like antioxidant power honey and stuff like that. But it's considered medical grade honey. So it's good marketing is all it really is. If you're just putting it on your biscuit, it's just honey, right? But all honey is potentially medicinal If you've got a cut or a wound, you can put honey on it. It kills germs. But this is potentially a market for U.S.-based antioxidant medical grade honey. So again, silver lining to a horrible insect pest that may or may not get down here to Arkansas. Speaking of eating good, we have seen an advance in some of the supplemental feeds. If you feed your bees protein patties, they are not made of pollen. People call them pollen patties. They're pollen substitutes. Some of them are pollen supplements. They may have, up to 10 or 15% pollen in there, but most of it is made of protein flours from soy, egg whites, and yeast, plus a bunch of sugar and usually some oil. You give a bee enough sugar, they'll eat just about anything. I think people are that way too, but you add enough sugar in it, people will eat it, right? So where bees don't have access to enough pollen or early in the season, you want to jumpstart brood production because you're making packages and nukes and splits, or you're trying to get ready for pollination contracts. You just need lots and lots of bees. Then they feed them up on this stuff. But none of these current diets we have, they all lack something called a sterol. In particular, plant sterols or phytosterols. These are really important molecules. So cholesterol is a sterol, not a good one, but there's lots of other sterols that are really necessary for us. And in bees, they are responsible, they're kind of what we call precursor molecules. They can't make them on their own, but they need them in order to manufacture all these other things. So vitamins, hormones, pheromones, cell membranes, digestive acids, and these are all found naturally in pollens. So part of what makes pollen nutritious for you as well as for your bees. So good stuff. So a team at I think it was Essex University in England, they genetically modified a yeast to produce 6 of the most important sterols, and they have been able to scale it up and produce it in huge volumes. And when they have fed it to bees in tests, they reared 15 times more brood, and they reared brood longer in the season compared to ones that were given the standard protein diets. So if you're rearing 15 times more brood, just remember you're rearing 15 times more varroa mites too. So keep that in mind. But they need much longer field trials for this, so it's going to be at least a couple of years before this is going to get on the market. But again, it's a step in the right direction. We're making progress. As the environment has fewer and fewer flowers, we may need to be supplementing bees. Arkansas, luckily, we have a pretty good environment as far as plants available and pollen available, but there are a lot of other places where bees are not getting such a good diet. So we have some new resources to tell you all about. One of them I'm involved in. This is the Apiculture Extension Educators of America, or beeducated.org. This is brand new, but it's people with positions like mine all over the country, and we are all producing educational materials and programs and things like that for our own states. And what we found was we're all reinventing the wheel. We're all making the same things. So why not get together? So you visit our website. All we have on there right now is just links to programs from other states, but we're trying to figure out how to best kind of get all the fact sheets and information and things that we have that we're working on separately available to everybody in this information age. So if you're interested, you can check that out. And for people in other states, all these grayed out states, those are states who do not have honeybee specialists. So you guys are lucky that you live in a state that does. But this will help people in areas that don't have access to materials in their own state to be able to find something in a similar climate as theirs. So that's one, and we're also working with the apiary inspectors who are kind of doing a similar effort. They've been working together for a long time, the Apiary Inspectors of America, but they're starting to put out some really good educational materials as well. And their new website is honeybeepest.org. Right now they're focusing on this one, Tropalaelaps. Have you guys heard of Tropalaelaps yet? You shaking your head no. you need to learn about tropolaelaps. It's not here yet, but it's going to be the next big disaster that's going to convince a lot of people to give up beekeeping. So check out honeybeepest.org. And also, here's a good one, tropistop.com. This is from the Pollinator Partnership. They also have a lot of good information. This is a mite that makes Varroa look friendly. These guys run really fast on the comb. They are able to survive, we think, on other hosts, so not just honeybees. They are found all over Asia, and they have been spreading the last few years. They are believed to be in Georgia, not the state Georgia, the country of Georgia, and maybe over into Ukraine and Russia. We're not really sure because that part of the world, they got some stuff going on that's keeping them otherwise occupied right now. But it's spreading down all through Southeast Asia, potentially into Australia and some other places. Just global shipping, cargo ships going everywhere is what's gonna spread these things around. So if you don't do anything else, watch this video. This will be a really good introduction at this website here, just to get yourself educated, learn what these guys are, what they potentially can do to the bee industry here. And we have a number of teams from different institutions that are over in Thailand and Korea and other places right now studying this mite over there before it gets here, trying to help the people in those countries combat it. But the USDA is legally not allowed to do any work on this because it's not here. So it's like when Varroa came, we didn't know what to do. Those poor Australians had 40 years of watching us flounder around, and what did they do when Varroa got to Australia? They said, we need to burn all the hives. Well, that didn't work. That's what they started to do here. So we don't want that mentality to happen all over again. We try to educate ourselves and each other about what this mite does and go over there. Right now, the leading candidate to kill these is formic acid. Oxalic acid doesn't work. A lot of the other products don't work. Formic acid seems to work in the right conditions, but that one's got a temperature restriction and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're trying, we're learning. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, this went out. Anybody see this on the Facebook and other stuff? Did you watch it? Yeah. So this came out with about 2-hour heads up. Quick, everybody, emergency, drop everything and watch this breaking news. So this was an urgent discussion on tropolaelaps mite found on a boat in U.S. waters. So everybody tuned in, and it was 3 commercial beekeepers, Cayman Reynolds, Charlie Linder, and Blake Shook. Yeah. So this was October 21st. It was over an hour long, but the main points made up about 7 minutes of it. So you can actually go back in and watch that and see what they said. But they said that there was a boat, a cargo ship, intercepted 25 miles from the port. It was going into the port of New Jersey, Port of Newark, and had a colony of Apis cerana, and it contained tropolaelaps mites. But they didn't know which of the 4 species of tropolaelaps were on board that ship, because only 2 of them can parasitize our honeybees. And then they also discussed a separate event where a swarm of bees was captured off of a ship and given to a local beekeeper. That sounds good, all right? And so they spent the rest of the time talking about the Bee Expo in January and talking about the response to this. And basically what happened was the New Jersey Department of Ag and the APHIS, the people who were supposed to be intercepting this, did their job. Everything worked according to plan. But this came out. Everybody clicked on this link. It was kind of clickbait, making you think something big was happening. It was a whole lot of nothing as far as the facts were concerned. A few days later, the Department of Ag in New Jersey actually released an official statement. APHIS, because of the government shutdown, was not allowed by law to tell anybody anything. because they're not supposed to be working, because that's how efficient our government is. But the New Jersey Department of Ag did release a statement, and it said that the ship was 3,600 miles off of shore. It was not in territorial waters. The captain of that ship, he left Mumbai, India, went to Oman, came up through the Suez Canal, and was headed out into the Atlantic Ocean when they discovered this. It was not in New York Harbor. So 3,600 miles away, they knew what they had, they knew what to do, they called the port they were going to, and they told them, we killed it, we put it in a freezer on the ship, we saved it for you guys to look at. And so everything was fine. So that was wrong, and it was also confirmed to be Apis dorsata, so a completely different species of bee, so that was wrong. And they did determine it had two types of mites. One was Tropilelaps mercedes, which is one that can get on honeybees, and then another one called, what is that? Kunzina morosai, and it's one that does not get on our honeybees. So just another mite that happened to be there. But there was no comb, it was not a bee's nest, it was a swarm of bees that landed on the ship and didn't know what to do because they were out in the middle of the ocean. So they were probably pretty confused and sad by the time they found it. Just for reference, this is 3,600 miles. They were in the territorial waters of Spain, probably. So not anywhere close to us. So this is why you should not rely on social media to get all of your facts. Who likes honey? We'll end on a happy note. Well, have I got news for you? Anybody harvest honey this year? Yeah? Does your kitchen look like this when it's over? And you're thinking, oh, there must be an easier way. Well, you're in luck. Introducing the Micro Honey Harvester. Look at this thing. It's amazing. It looks like a little food processor, right? But you get these little plastic honeycombs. There's 8 of them in a comb. And the idea is that every time you want some fresh honey, you just go outside, put on your bee suit, light your smoker, go out there and pop one of these out. Put out your smoker, come back in, take off your bee suit, and you whirl it around like this. In just 5 minutes, you've got a quarter cup of honey. Yippee! Exactly. How much would you pay? Wait, don't answer yet. It's a mere $800. Now, that's Australian. It's only $500 American, but with the tariffs, it'll be back up to $800. So now there's 8 of those per comb. So in 10 frames in your hive, you only have to do that 64 times. So 64 times 5 minutes. How long does it take to uncap one comb, right? 30 seconds if you know what you're doing. Put them in your extractor, whirl it up. So I don't know. This is the same country that gave us the what's the hive with the tap on the back? The Flow Hive. Yeah. So not the same people, but same country. So they keep trying to reinvent the beehive and make it easier. We'll see. So anyway, that's our extension update. Feel free to contact me anytime. Those of you who do know me and have known me for many years, you may have this phone number. Well, we don't have that number anymore because the government decided that we didn't need all those cell phones, even though we travel everywhere. And so they got rid of that. They replaced all of our phones with these big clunky desk phones that are connected to Zoom. So you can call, you can text, you can send me a voicemail at this number, which has been my desk number anyway all along. So it works great. It rolls over to my cell phone when I'm out, only as long as the internet works. And I'm at the farm in Fayetteville at the experiment station, and our internet to my building is like a radio signal that comes line of sight from another building. And if a bird flies by, it drops my connection. Somebody parked a truck in front of my building when I first moved in. For a week, I didn't have any internet, and nobody knew why. There was a truck parked there. A trailer, actually, not a truck. So once we moved the trailer, it's been fine until that bird sits on the wrong wire, but go figure. You can always email me And especially if you want a good, well-reasoned answer. And all of my contact information, of course, is always on our website, along with publications, links to our online beekeeping short course, and everything else. So I would be happy to take any questions about what I've talked about or anything else. Lay it on me. Thank you all very much. Pleasure to be here. Yes.
You heard anything like I have about not using a metal spoon to dip your honey with?
I have heard that before, and then I thought about my stainless steel extractor and all the other stuff I have. My bottling tank is stainless steel, so I think that the few seconds that my honey is in contact with a metal spoon, it's probably not going to do a terrible lot of danger. But again, that's one of those things that you see go around on Facebook and things like that with nothing to really back it up.
In the good old days, the extractor was a 55-gallon oil drum.
That's right. They coated it with... That's right. And it was galvanized. If you were lucky.
My grandparents said it was not galvanized.
Yeah.
Was
it was just an old rusty one.
steel drum.
Yep.
Now, they always kept it clean. There wasn't any rust in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
On the mites, it seems like I remember that this new mite must have brood to survive.
We thought that it did.
Okay, but it didn't.
We thought that if they went through a broodless period, they would all die. This ship came from India, and there was still mites on those bees. So were they alive? Were the mites starving to death and about to die anyway? It remains to be seen.
What's the life cycle of these mites? How long of a life cycle?
I don't want to misquote on that, so you should go watch that video that I pointed out. I don't know what their life cycle is, and I'm not sure anybody knows what their full lifespan is, how many times they can lay eggs and stuff like that. But that's part of what we're trying to learn. It's believed that they may be able to feed on rats. So, and that may be one way that they spread through a forest and get from one hive to another. It was thought that if you kept your hive, these guys run really fast on the comb. It was thought that if you keep your hive sitting on ant motes, where the legs of your beehive are sitting in water or oil, they can't move up into that. But they seem to be able to hitchhike on bees, same way varroa mites can, and so that may not work. So we're still learning. No, it's not. But actually, you just recorded it?
Yeah, all this is in video. It'll be on the YouTube channel with the email account as well.
So I'm a new beekeeper. I lost my first hive a couple of years ago. I got a new hive. Ordered some. They came in earlier this spring. I went and checked them the other day, and they still have not completely filled out the 10 frames in their box.
Mm-hmm.
Winter's coming on. Is that a problem?
Potentially. How many combs are drawn out?
There's probably 3.5. So two frames are probably empty, and one side of another frame is empty. So, yeah, is it a problem? And is one question. And the other question is, what's going on? Why haven't they filled that out yet?
And there's a lot of potential reasons. When did you get started with them? May, June?
I think May.
Yeah, so right towards the end of the honey flow, well, we had a lot of rain this year, which kind of extended it, but they may not have had enough time to just get out there and gather everything they needed. If the population is small in particular, they spend more time, just taking care of brood rather than foraging and building combs. So they were doing the best they can. Have you been feeding them?
Yeah.
And they're still not drawing comb.
Yeah.
Then I would...
I think you should, but again, I'm new.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would, if you have any drawn comb, or you can get some from other people, you might add a couple of drawn combs in there. just so they can fill it up, because they're not likely to produce wax and build anymore this year. But I would recommend that you keep syrup on them all winter long, inside the hive or right above, so that they have access to it right there without having to go down to the entrance or go outside to feed.
What about fondant?
Fondant can work, yeah.
And I have another problem then with fondant or any other supplement I've ever tried to feed. I get small hive beetles like really, really badly. Is there anything that you can do about that other than not feed them this stuff?
Small hive beetles will eat fondant. They really like the protein patties. In that case, I would give them syrup rather than the fondant, so that something that they have to go and get, a drop at a time from a bucket feeder or something above them. That way the hive beetles don't really have access to it. And just something that they can continue to feed from that little drip all winter long is probably what they're going to require.
Well, I have the top, the feeders that it's got reservoirs in it. You pour sugar water in.
Mhm.
Is that good enough?
Those can work too. You don't want to have to be opening the hive every week in the winter and refilling those with a jar feeder or a bucket feeder on top, or like one like this. So they can come up from the middle, and then they come down and they feed. You can pour a lot of syrup in these.
That's what I have.
Okay. Oh, okay. I thought you said you had the ones that went down inside the hive.
Like that.
Okay.
Like sits on top before the sugar water and then the rest.
Yeah. Some of those are really bad about bees drowning in them. And like with the little screen there, they should be able to climb back out. But if they do drown, there's no way to really easily get them out. So I'm not. Okay. Okay. Yeah, those are good too. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. All right, thank you very much. We got a couple of things going. So first, we got the 50